Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and I am delighted to be here with my dear friend, Rabbi Shlomo Gemara. How are you, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem, how are you, Avrum? How was the week?
My week was beautiful. Thank you so much. They seem to be very full. You know, it's an interesting thing. A long time ago, I remember hearing Devar Torah, and just in short, there was a question about what does Arichat Yamim mean? You know, length of days. Well, you know, there are two mitzvot in the Torah that tell you get length of days if you do them correctly, which is Kibbut Aviyim and Shluch Haken. And then there's a big question. The Gemara is, what does it mean that, you know, you get lengthy days? Because there's many situations where people's days are not long; they die early. And the answer, one of the answers that was given was very beautiful, which is that each and every one of your days will be full; they will be long. And I am very, very blessed to have at least three things in a given day that are meaningful and purposeful to me. How about you?
That's a very beautiful pshat, but I'll tell you what I feel is Arichut Yamim. Tell me, how many decisions, big or small, you are making every day? How many decisions?
Dozens.
So, you see, the difference between a simple person and the leader is that leaders are doing many more decisions, and the impact of their decision is going on more people.
Yes.
So sometimes I talk to parents, teachers, and I realize that I made a mistake. We all are human beings. And I say, you know what, today I had like 250 decisions. I was wrong in 10. I'm in a pretty good situation. Unfortunately, you were one of the decisions of the 10 that I made a mistake.
Yes.
To me, Arichut Yamim means the opportunity to make many decisions, because there are people who live 100 years and their decision is what to eat for breakfast, then how am I going to spend the next few hours? Very few decisions. So they might live longer life, but not life that can be changed by decision, can be active, can be fruitful. So I think that Arichut Yamim is indeed something that, to me, is the opportunities to make many decisions and important ones.
Oh, it's a lovely thought. A friend of mine once told me that in our lifetime, sort of going on the idea of making decisions, we probably make about 5 what he called presidential decisions. In other words, the big ones, you know, should I leave Israel and move to Canada? Those sizes, right? And I find that when I'm faced with those presidential decisions in my life, they're extraordinarily difficult to make, like anybody else, I'm sure. And it takes a long time for me to let it simmer and to figure out which direction I'm supposed to go, you know?
And you know what? Sometimes you don't control your own decision. Listen, now we actually read in our Parsha that Yaakov, upon seeing Rachel, he fell in love. He knew exactly, this is my wife. But from there on, this was his decision. But you are not the only one who controlled the outcome of your decision. There was Laban. He was deceived. He married Leah. And from here on, I'm sure that he had like thousands of decisions just about how to live normal life with 2 sisters and with a great father-in-law at the head, Laban. So sometimes even our decisions are not the end of the story.
I was thinking about your decision this past summer as to whether to stay in Israel when your father was sick or to go back home. And I was thinking about the machinations you must have gone through to determine which route to go. I think your wife did come back, right?
My wife did come back, and remember, at the time, the doctors themselves told us it can be weeks, maybe months, and yeah, so it was a very difficult decision. And again, you know what? Hashem helped me to make the right decision. I could easily. I was already on the site to find out a flight going from Israel back home, and Baruch Hashem that I stayed with my father mamash until the last breath.
I was talking to someone this week who told me that they have a major decision to make. And they said it's a very difficult one. I'm not quite sure which way to go, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help me make my decision. Well, what does that mean?
I do believe that sometimes you come to a decision that you can see the con and the pros in a very same way, and then something unexpected is coming, and you say, you know what? It's not 50-50, it's like something of 70-30, it's 60-40. And I call this siyata dishmaya. It's like a message, sometimes something that you did not see before, and Hashem opened your eyes to see the situation on a larger scale. I guess that's what he meant. Like, Hashem will help me to make the right decision, because sometimes we come to a point where rational decision is beyond our reach. It's like our emotions, and the brain and the heart are fighting. It's very, very hard to find a way out of a certain situation. And sometimes you get this feeling, a strong feeling that this is what you have to do.
Okay. The Parsha this week is Parsha Vayetze, and the rabbi and I have really taken on a new series, which is called Torah in Real Time. And Rabbi, I mentioned to you this last week, and I'll mention it again. People really love the title, and they really love the concept.
I'm happy to hear that.
When I first told you, I said, Rabbi, here's the idea. What do you think? Torah in Real Time. You said, yeah, I like it. And I was happy about that.
Good.
So the idea behind our new series is to study and learn the Torah, the Parsha of the week, and to do it through current events. So as an example, this week we're talking about Yaakov, his two wives, and all of the stories that came out of that. And we're going to talk about it through the filter of the 1947 partition plan in Israel. How will we do that? We'll see. I'm sure we'll do it well.
I would like to talk about this one. I would like to talk about the decision itself. Would like to talk again about anti-Semitism that seems to be a current event every single week, every day. Something is happening somewhere, which we have to deal with. I would like to talk also about the fact, which many anti-Semites use it a lot, to talk about how is it possible that so few Jews in the world, and in America they are 60% of the financials and 38% in universities and so on and so on. And I think some of it is in our Parsha. People forget how hard we achieve our achievements. And Yaakov, I think, is a perfect example for a person who had to fight to achieve. And people very quickly forget it. Today they see, especially in America, the successful Jew, but they don't remember and they don't recognize how much sweat, tears, and hard work went into this success. So it's something to learn from our Parsha that might explain many things that we see today.
Yeah, I know. I think that's a valid point. A number of years ago, I was listening to Madonna. Do you remember Madonna?
She's a singer.
Yes, very good.
Yeah.
And
I don't think she's like Yeshivish song.
No, not Yeshivish at all. But she was inspirational because she worked hard to get to where she was at. And she asked the question once, so many people were critical of her. She said, why don't people try to emulate my success? And I've often thought that in the context of many other situations. And you're right. When it comes to anti-Semitism, look at the Jew and see what we fought and what we've needed to overcome. Establishment of the state of Israel and the building of Israel and the uniqueness of it and the strength of it. Come along with us. Be part of what we do.
Absolutely. This morning in one of my courses, I spoke about what happened in Munich in 72,
72.
the massacre. And I spoke about it through the lens of Mark Spitz.
Oh,
My student, no one heard about them, but you, I'm sure, heard. You still belong to the hero who won 7 gold medals in the Olympics in Munich. And I took like a piece of the way he talks about like his hard work. No question, I'm sure that he got lots of talent, and something is a gift from God. But the guy from the age of 6 years old worked hours and hours and hours to reach this one. And the people who just watch the swimming, they cannot appreciate how much work went into it. So to me, Mark Spitz, in a way, is a paradigm for all the Jewish achievements. Yes, I'm sure that Hashem gave us many, many gifts, but if Hashem would give us only the gifts, we would achieve nothing. If we would be able to talk to each other as Jews, I'm not sure. It comes with years of resilience, of hard work, of tears, of execution. And people sometimes forget it. They just look on 2025 and they take a picture of the Jews today and they forget what went into 3,700 years of history.
And in that light, when I walk into a Jewish library with Sfarim, with Jewish books, and what's very interesting too is if I were to walk into your library and walk into, let's say, Rabbi Karopkin's library at the Bayit or in his home, much of it would be very, very much the same, right?
100%.
Much of it, Mishnah Berurah, Mishnah Torah, et cetera, et cetera. But my point is that when you look around at a library and you see some of the Sforim that have been written over the generations, and then those Sforim, those ideas built upon today and built upon even more so, and the burgeoning of Torah throughout the world, that's a lot of work.
Absolutely. I want to tell you a story. I just gave a shiur in, it was in Shomer Shabbos shul, and I mentioned as part of the shiur, like the Turei Even. The Turei Even lived in the beginning of the 18th century. He was a sharp and very knowledgeable rabbi, but he had to move from one place to another because he got into fights with people, with rabbis. He was very, very sharp, very opinionated. But the interesting thing is, he was very poor because he couldn't keep his work. He always the moment he entered a job in a certain city, he already started to fight with the Balabatim, and he had to find a new place. Only when he was 70, he got a shtele, as we call it, a position in Metz in northern France. But the interesting thing is, he wrote 2 books. Now, it's almost impossible to decode the acronym of the books because he had very little amount of ink. He was so poor, he couldn't buy ink. So he wrote all his books with Rashei Tevot, with initials. And some of them are very hard to decode. So it's before I brought the piece he wrote, I had to decode it. It took me 20 minutes just to decode the Rashei Tevot.
Wow.
And you think about it, this is a person that I'm sure, could teach someone and to make some pennies on the side just to sustain himself and his family. A person who does not have money to buy ink, we are not talking about buying jewelry, buying ink, which is a very basic staples, and and the most important thing for him was to write a book. And I think it comes with culture of years and centuries of appreciation to the written book and the contribution that every Jew has to add for generations to come. And indeed, we are more than 300 years after he wrote his books, and we still earn them. So he was right by the effort he put inside every book that he wrote.
Rabbi, explain Rashi Tevot.
Rashi Tevot, the best example is Reish Taf in Hebrew, which is Rashi Tevot. So you don't try the whole word or two words, Rashi Tevot, which means the beginning of the word. You just write Reish Taf, and every average student who learn a little bit Torah will tell you right away, oh, of course, it's Rashi Tevot. I don't think actually that something like this exists in the literature. Maybe in the academic literature, you immediately have like kind of abbreviation that everyone knows what do you mean. But usually it's going to be, let's say in the financial world, you will have certain acronym or initial that everyone will recognize, but I will read it and I don't know what does that mean. RSI or all kind of financial terms.
GDP, that sort of thing.
What?
A GDP.
GDP, exactly, things like this. So it's for professionals. Some of them, because the high use of it, everyone knows. But if you open Tolstoy, if you open Steinbeck, you won't find it. It's like, who writes this way? You want to give your readers, to the ability to read it quickly and fast. I once heard actually that part of it, of this culture of Rashi Tevot, is actually to slow you down. They didn't want you to read it like it was a newspaper. This is something that you have to work. And the basic level of work is to understand the words themselves.
Oh, I love that. Is Teku Rashi Teva?
For example, Teku, it's a very famous Talmudic term, which turned to be a Rashi Tevot. It's interesting. Actually, in Aramaic, the word Teku means like in Hebrew, takum, like it's going to stand with no solution this way or another. Usually the word teku will be at the conclusion of a huge debate. This thing like that, this thing like that. You try to bring a proof, it was rejected. At the end of the whole discussion that can be very long, few blocks of Talmud pages, you have like a conclusion. Okay, teku. What's the conclusion? There is no conclusion. Teku. But I think later someone explained it in the following way, because in Jewish life, you have questions. Sometimes you will not have an answer, but we all believe that one day Eliyahu will come and he will resolve our question. And there is a halachic reason why we sometimes need Eliyahu to decide. This is not the forum to explain it. But the word teku, which in Hebrew is taf yud kuf vav, turned to be tishbi. This is Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Tishbi. Yetaretz is going to come and answer and to resolve kushiyot ubayot. So Eliyahu, okay, we don't know the answer. We don't know the final answer, but it doesn't mean that there is no final answer. Yeah. We just have to wait to someone like Eliyahu, Elijah, the prophet, to come one day and to tell us what is the conclusion of this discussion and this debate.
Listen, just to take a step back, you can afford ink. So why aren't you committed to writing a sefer, a book? Yours would be wonderful.
Maybe one day. I don't know. You know what? You were the one to convince me to be on air. If you put more pressure, one day, Chas v'shalom, I might even write a book. Who knows?
I think you should. I think people would love it.
Who knows? Sometimes people have to be pushed a little bit, and I'm one of them, I guess.
Right. Okay, I'll start pushing harder. Ladies and gentlemen, the Parsha this week is Parsha Vayetze. Let me introduce it formally to you, please. This week we learned Vayetze, which is the seventh Parsha in the Torah, spanning 148 verses, 2,020 words, and 7,512 letters. Does that do anything for you, those statistics, those ideas?
It's always interesting. Jews always love statistics. I know people that baseball has lots of statistics.
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
people who are like walking encyclopedia, and they will tell you about Babe Ruth. Every detail on the statistics, it became like so important for them. And apparently, we did not have too many great baseball player. I'm sure that we had few, but when it comes to statistics, oh, I'm sure that the Jewish people are the best in the field.
Sandy Koufax was the big one, and he was just at
I,
the World Series.
Absolutely. And you know what? I actually, in the course that I present Jewish heroes, and that's why I spoke about Mark Spitz. And yeah, Sandy Koufax, listen, he did a huge act on not playing on Yom Kippur. Wow, that's something that I think people for generation will remember Sandy Koufax, which I think is still alive, by the way.
Yep.
I'm not sure. They will remember him for this Yom Kippur more than all the home runs he made in his career.
At least the Jewish people will.
For sure.
I mentioned a moment ago, he was actually at this World Series. He was there. But I think the story about Koufax, and then I'll go back to my introduction, is when he went into shul for Kol Nidre, I believe it was, the whole shul rose up and gave him a standing ovation.
And I think he deserved it. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's very inspiring. It's very inspiring because this is something that you would not expect in the priorities. And listen, he was not a practicing Jew, but every Jew has this like point that he does not want to cross, and Yom Kippur is one of them. And I think that this was not about Yom Kippur. It was about like making this red line that I'm not crossing. And therefore, I'm not sure that only Jews will remember him, because the world need principled people. One of the problem of this generation is lack of boundaries.
Mhm.
And this obedience that no one forced on him. On the contrary, he had all the reason to say this. I think was the finals or whatever it is. One Yom Kippur, what is going to happen? I'm sure that you will find also a rabbi who will say it's not Chilul Yom Kippur Mamash because he's not eating. It's maybe muktzeh. He could find all kind of heterim. But he decided, no, as a Jew, I have to stick to something of my identity. And this is very inspiring.
Absolutely. Another great Jewish baseball player was Hank Greenberg. But we will carry on here. Vayetze. It is a portion built on movement and transformation. Jacob leaving Beersheba, dreaming of a ladder reaching heavenward, and beginning the family that will become the tribes of Israel. Vayetze invites us into a long, emotional, deeply human journey. The Torah portion of Vayetze opens with the young Jacob on the run, leaving behind his home, his parents, and his brother whom he has just deceived. Alone, exhausted, and uncertain about his future, Jacob stops for the night in a seemingly empty place. Yet it is precisely there in the wilderness that heaven breaks open before him. He dreams of a ladder stretching from earth to sky, with angels ascending and descending, a vision that will shape his destiny and ours. Vayetze is a portion of journey, Jacob's journey outward to Haran, where he will meet Rachel and Leah and the complex family that will become the foundation of the tribes of Israel. And Jacob's journey inward toward responsibility, love, struggle, blessing, faith. We watch him labor for years out of devotion, endure deception at the hands of Laban, build a family, and quietly grow from solitary, frightened youth into a leader with a very deep sense of purpose. The God who appeared to him in that dream becomes a steady, if subtle, presence throughout his life. At its heart, Vayetze is about transformation. It is about what happens when a person leaves what is familiar, enters uncertainty, and discovers that holiness can erupt in the most unexpected places, on the road, in a field, by a well, even in moments of heartbreak or exhaustion. I love this stuff.
Yeah, this Parsha is actually the foundation and description It's a microcosmos of what happened to the Jewish people over the generation.
It's fascinating. And I think about my father, God bless his soul, and my mother, she should rest in peace, who left Toronto and they went to Kitchener, and my father died in Kitchener. He was the rabbi there for 36 years. I think about myself, Rabbi, when I was 13 years old. I left my parents' home, never really to return on a full-time basis, to go to yeshiva, and I think about you leaving Israel and coming to Toronto. Those are exoduses. And I want to add to that list some people throughout history who left their home very often because they had to and established a life for themselves elsewhere. Albert Einstein left Germany due to anti-Semitism, later fled Nazi rule. In his exile, he produced the most transformative physics of the 20th century. But by the way, I just finished a book about Rabbi Avrum Kook, and he met with Einstein. Did you know that?
No,
yeah, he met with Einstein.
I think maybe I heard that he once met him and even suggested something about relativity is hinted in the Zohar or something like that. I now a story like this entertain my memory.
So Einstein had to go to another meeting, and he told his assistant, he says, I'm staying with the rabbi because he's one of the only ones who understands E equals MC squared. It's a great book by Rabbi Kook. Golda Meir left Kiev and later Milwaukee for a pre-Israel state. Madeleine Albright fled Czechoslovakia twice, first from Nazis, then from communists. Steve Jobs, though born in the U.S., he was adopted out from his family, birth family, and later forced out of Apple, an exile that led him to create Pixar and eventually returned to reinvent Apple itself. And finally, Elie Wiesel, torn from his home in Siget during the Holocaust. From exile, he rose to become a global moral conscience and Nobel Peace Prize winner. Rabbi, what happens to a person, the sort of idea of Mashana Makom, Mashana Mazal, sort of change your place, you change your luck. What happens to a person when they leave their home and they go to a new place and they establish themselves, and very often with great success?
That's a very interesting question, and I think that there is two answers to it. Answer number one, knowing people, knowing other cultures, always open your mind. If you are a curious person and you grew up in one environment and you are open-minded and you go to another environment, immediately what is happening? Like you start to compare the two cultures, you start to see what is unique to the two cultures, what is like common to the two cultures, why people are doing this and in my former place they are doing that. So this is the huge experience for everyone who is really curious about life and about how different people and different societies and different cultures are dealing with the same issue. So I know that for me, coming to a very different culture than Israel was a very, very enriching experience, which continues in a way until this moment that I talk to you. The other one is crisis like birth itself, which is a crisis, is apparently the womb of new ideas, new ambitions, and apparently God created the world that with no labor pain, you cannot really give birth to anything. It's not only true about real babies, it's also the fruit of our mind, of our heart. It has to come somehow from crisis. And indeed, many people that you mentioned grew as a result of crisis. A crisis, listen, many people went through crisis and their life changed completely and they became broken. But there are these unique people who took the crisis and actually use it as a step to climb higher. And it's very impressive always when you meet people like this, inspirational speakers. Sometimes you hear stories, it's hard to believe. And it tells you something about the human spirit. It tells you a lot about the human spirit.
Rabbi, because you left Israel and came to Toronto, what do you know that you would not have known if you wouldn't have left Israel?
How you can live life, quietly with no pressure so much as in Israel. And this is massive, to be honest with you. But to me, it was something different. In Israel, I felt that I have to belong to certain group, to certain label, so to speak, in order to identify myself, to define myself, to find myself in terms of society. Then I think that about myself and my family, actually, we are people of many cultures in a way. We live observant life, but we are open to philosophy and to science and to understanding the world in many, many ways. I don't think that I would be able to do it in Israel. And this was one of the things that pushed me to come to a place like North America or Canada. I knew that I will find myself much more comfortable here rather in Israel. Well, things change, Canada of today is not exactly the place that I left. And Israel of today is very different. In my time, I don't think that one of my friends left Israel even once. The only opportunity we had was in Lebanon. And when we went to Lebanon, it was a war, but we felt, oh wow, we are in Chutz La'aretz. It was like mountains and rivers and cherry trees. It was like, wow, like really like we are in Wonderland. Forget about the RPGs and about the Cornet missile, but it was like a feeling, wow, we are in Chutz La'aretz. Anyway, today, I don't think that there are many Israelis who did not tour Chutz La'aretz. So what used to be then, it's not today, not Canada, not Israel. I think that I will be much more comfortable today to be in Israel because I see that many, many people are in a situation like us. They can be a little bit more religious, and they can be open-minded, they can be philosopher, and they can love science, and it's not so much in contradiction as it used to be, or the way I saw it when I was much younger.
Rabbi, I want to go down a different road having to do with the Parsha Vayetze. I'm very much of, I come from a long line of emotional people. I don't know that your background is like that. Would you agree? I'm probably more emotional than you are.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'm always talking about emotions, asking you about your emotions. You go, oh, Avrum, I've never thought of this, So I want to ask you a question on the Parsha having to do with emotions. Within the Parsha, after studying it, I thought to myself that it's laden with so many different emotions. As an example, fear. Jacob flees from Esau after receiving Isaac's blessing. He's alone, vulnerable, and unsure of what lies ahead. He's frightened. Awe. Upon awakening from his dream, Jacob explains how awesome is this place. Love. Jacob's love for Rachel is immediate and profound, so deep that 7 years felt like a few days. And hope. Despite trickery, hardship, and family conflict, Jacob holds fast to God's promise of protection and a future. There's a lot of feeling in this parsha. When I was growing up, when I went to yeshiva, we did a lot of great learning, but emotions were not in the forefront of that learning. Why would that be?
In many ways, actually, being in yeshiva might be very harmful to your emotions. Listen, living life of Torah and mitzvot is to regulate your life and to regulate your emotions. I'll give you just one example that I experienced recently. Think about the whole idea of mourning. Different people react different to the loss of a loved one. And some people, as I said before, their life shattered after the passing of a loved one, especially if it's like a child, someone that you were very close to. And here comes the Torah and say, you have 7 days. Okay, for parents, you have like a longer time. But what about after 7 days? No, you don't go to the cemetery. You don't talk over the grave to tell the stories. And I saw people like this. I think that I told you that I have a friend that was killed in Lebanon, and this parent, since then, for almost 40 years, every single day, they went to the cemetery to talk to him. And there are many people like this, unfortunately. But the Torah regulates it. The Torah says 7 days and that's it. You marry the love of your life. You love her so much, but we have Sheva Brachot, 7 days, and that's it. You cannot continue it more than that. It just exemplified how Torah regulates your emotions. And I never saw people like, will in the yeshiva world will kiss a wife or even kiss their children in public. It's considered to be something of privacy. You don't do it. You don't show your emotions in public. So in a way, I think when you cannot be spontaneous about your emotions, you will lose some of the intensity of your emotions. I believe so. And living religious life, I would say, is a constant fight between your mind and your heart. And yes, living halachic lifestyle, which is regulated by laws and by what you can do and what you can do, in many, many ways is very limiting your emotions. And, it comes even to the religious side. I think that many people on Shabbat, they are more like afraid of Shabbat and like the muktzeh or doing something of melechet totzah or this, oh, you cannot do this. Instead of just, people who are spiritual and love Shabbat and they love the atmosphere around the table, I would say more Hasidic style of people, they will lose some of the intensity of their emotions because the strict and rigid laws that regulate their behaviors. So, on one hand, there is a beauty in it because you are not swept away by your emotions, which might be very dangerous. At the same time, I completely agree that the yeshiva world, I'm talking about the Litvish one, the one that you grew in and I grew in, put emotions in a much lower level and priorities in the Avodat Hashem, in the worship of God. Absolutely.
So when you teach your students about the love between Yaakov and Rachel, and I believe that he loved Leah as well, and you can touch on this. How do you explain the love? How do you explain love from the Torah perspective?
It's a very hard question because, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that I know what does that mean because I'm also a product of generation. Like, love became something very Hollywoodish, so to speak. A person who loses his mind just because he found a girl very attractive and she's smiling to him and they start working together and so on and so on. And many times people ask me about it, and I ask them a very interesting question. I said, do you know what is the first act of shidduchim when people are dating in the Haredi community, for example? So one of them, at least in Israel, and I'm pretty sure here, is going to a lab, taking blood and to match, to make sure that the two which are candidates to date together don't carry a genetic disease. Now, I asked them many, many times, just think about it. Be'ezrat Hashem, that everything will be fine. But what happened if you fell in love and you know nothing about the genetics of your date or the girl that you already walk with 2 years and sometimes even live 2 years, and you find out that there is a high risk of genetic problem. Well, what are you doing then? So in the Haredi community, I think it's much more regulated that things like this, accidents like this, will not happen. There is a clear path of what is expected of marriage, and this is to have children, to educate them in a certain way. They should be, I would say, almost a certain product that will continue the tradition. and they don't want to take any risk in this situation. And like students usually are shocked by something like this. They never thought even about it. That when you talk about the Hollywood style of love, you might open up problems in the future, because emotions sometimes might be very misleading and very unsustainable in a way throughout life. So when we talk about the love of Yaakov to Rachel, I don't think it was something that you could make on a movie, like, two people are meeting and he just fell in love because she was so sweet to him, and they found a topic which both of them like, a book or a movie or a common friend or something like this. I want to believe that the Torah is telling us about our forefathers as people that bear a mission in their heart. I want to see them like you mentioned Steve Jobs. This guy was obsessed with technology, with invention, I'm sure that all his life he thought about this one, and he saw himself as a person who had a mission. Maybe not divine. I don't know if he was an atheist or not, but he feels inside him a sense of mission. And I do believe that both Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov had this feeling of mission. We started a new startup nation, the Jewish people. They did not know that it's going to be a nation at the time. They just had the promise from God. And when he saw Rachel and fell in love, I want to explain it to myself. He saw something in her that he thought this will be something that will be a perfect match in order to carry on the mission. How we found it, how we knew it, I have no idea. But I want to believe that it was not like just falling in love. It was something much deeper than that.
Right. And there's a midrash, I believe, or perhaps a Rashi, that said that when Yaakov kissed Rachel, he cried. And
Right? That's what the Torah said.
the Torah says he cried. But then the interpretation on that is because he saw in the future that she would not be buried with him, right? So in other words, the point I'm trying to make is that you're right. There were thoughts to the future when he found Rachel.
Absolutely. I think that this midrash come to highlight exactly this idea. Don't think for a moment that this was just like falling in love with someone. It was something very, very deep, that sometimes people who are consumed by a mission, by a vision, they look around and they know exactly what is going to who are the people who can help them, who are the people who can they can trust in fulfilling their mission. And apparently that's what happened on the well between Jacob and Rachel, because even at the love story there is something very strange here. You meet like a girl coming to the well, you don't know her, you never spoke to her, and you go and kiss her. Okay, give me a break. Today it's going to be like what? Like completely inappropriate, right? And the Torah is telling us not to tell us that Yaakov was inappropriate, but Yaakov saw immediately that there is something about her that will match the genes, the spiritual genes that he had. Again, I don't know what that mean. I don't know what he felt or just concluded. But yes, it was. I want to think that it was something different than the way we perceive love these days.
Just to pick up on this idea a little bit, the Torah uses the word snua when it comes to Leah.
It said "Ve'nei Leah rakot." I don't think that the word sniut is.
I believe there's two or three different words. Anyway, the point is that the translation. I mean, there's different translations depending on the Chumash, but it's like that God saw that Leah was hated. Was she in fact hated?
I don't know. I really don't know. It says kisnua. Today the word sin'ah in Hebrew is hate, is to hate. Is this what the Torah mean by hating, or maybe the Torah compare the love yet to Rachel and any less than that considered to be sin'ah? There is the same word of soneh appears in the famous Parsha where a person go to the forest and by accident he killed the person because the axe fell down and chopped the head of someone who just passed by. And the Torah said, "Vehu lo soneh lo mitmol shilshom." He was not, he did not hate him. Now, what did that mean? It was like just a person who passed by. And our sages learn from here that sin'ah or soneh, the person that you did not say shalom aleichem in 3 days.
Oh.
So sin'ah is not something that we define it like hatred, like אני שונא את הערבים, אני שונא, it's not that. It's something of lack of relationship, I believe. And there is no question that the relationship Jacob had with Leah that he never intended to marry were different than the relationship he had with Rachel. And you know what? Again, I just read the Torah with no parshanut. Our intention is immediately to say, no, at the end, Judah and Reuben and Simeon, they all came from Leah. He must like their. But from the Torah itself, on the pshat level, if you read it flat, I think it looks like he stuck with Leah in a way. Let's be honest. Like, you can see from her prayers to God that she felt at least neglected. She felt at least that Yaakov actually doesn't want her. It's a terrible feeling. And Yaakov had all the reasons why he wanted her to stay, which is a very interesting topic by itself. I believe that he did not want to create a crisis within the family. Imagine that he would tell Leah, this was all mistake. Like, I never wanted you, and you know that. And please, I will, please leave my house. How Rachel will feel about it. Two sisters, and eventually this was the complexity of the situation. They were sisters at the end of the day. I always tell, I had few cases. I had one student that he married someone and his brother married her sister. And I say to them, I really, this is fantastic. Like, I hope that you are going to have wonderful life. But you know what? In the back of your mind, you have to think, what will happen if chas v'chalila, one of you is not going to be so successful? Then it's going to be a very odd situation. Because this makes such a complexity from family relationship. So people have to think about it sometimes too. So I do believe that Yaakov stuck with Leah in a way, at least the way we read it in the story. But we talked about decision. He made a decision that they are going to carry the family together, even if the relationship with Rachel and Leah are not exactly the same. As I said before, I think that what Yaakov saw is the goal. The goal was to establish a family that will continue the tradition of Avram, Yitzchak, himself. He knew about the promise of God that a nation will come out of them. And he just made it work. He made it work. I'm sure that he asked himself, how did I find myself in a situation like this? And sometimes the answer is just don't drink too much, because, how Laban really deceived him. If you read, there is one word that reveals a secret. It says, Vayas Laban mishte gadol. You know what is mishte gadol? Like he poured there like beer and wine and whiskey, whatever they had in this time, maybe arak in the Middle East, with no limit. And I'm sure that Yaakov, it says in the Torah, Velo yada b'shichva u'bekuma. Do you know how drunk you have to be for something like this, that you don't recognize the lady that you married? But people can be intoxicated in a way like this. So number one, keep away from alcohol, especially at the night of the
Yeah, I
wedding.
think the Mishteh Gadol by Achashverosh
Of
caused
course,
the same
yeah.
problem, right?
I am sure that Laban was afraid that Yaakov will find out that this is not Rachel. So he made sure everything he could. And again, God had different plans. I think that God actually wanted a family to come maybe from Leah and Rachel that were different. But he participated in the plot of Laban to make Yaakov not aware. But I'm sure that Yaakov was very angry when he realized in the morning that this is not Rachel. And as I said before, because it was not just a regular love, he was like, on a mission, and realizing that this is not the wife, this is not the lady that they are going to continue to fulfill the goals that the Abrahamic family has. This was what hurt him more than just like finding himself with a different woman.
Rabbi, on November 29th, 1947, one of the most pivotal moments in modern Jewish and really Middle Eastern history took place, which was the UN partition plan. The United Nations General Assembly voted on Resolution 181, a plan to end the British mandate in Palestine and divide the land into two states, a Jewish state and an Arab state, and Jerusalem was placed under international administration. The final vote was 33 in favor, 13 against, and 10 abstentions. Within that light, Jacob flees Beersheba with nothing but a staff, stepping into a very uncertain future. How does Jacob's vulnerable journey mirror the Jewish people's situation on November 29th, 1947, when the UN vote offered hope, but also immediate danger?
Yeah, I think it's really appropriate to talk about it because, even among the 33 nations which voted for Israel, a lot of it was like en brera, like they had to. Like how Germany, how like countries that hosted Jews and most of the Jews in their countries disappeared could vote against Jewish land. Like, they had lots of guilt emotions about it. And I believe that many of them voted not because they thought, oh, this is the right thing to do, we must do it. By the way, one of these countries that did it for the right things was Canada. Now, I don't know if they did it because they felt a little bit guilty for not opening the gates for Jews in Europe beforehand. I don't know. But we have to remember and to be grateful for, I cannot remember who was the person then from Canada who actually pushed many countries to vote for the establishment of Israel. So let's mention this thing. Since then, Canada have changed, Israel have changed. Why do I say that? Because immediately afterwards, many of these countries like try to outdo the good thing that they did until this very day. We all remember like the terrible decision that compare Zionism to racism. Like some of the countries who actually initiated and gave the Jewish people a land, they were part of this decision. How is that possible? The answer is they did not do it belev shalem. They did not do it with full heart. They did it out of guilt and not of understanding this special situation that you just do the justice, the ultimate justice to people that left their country 2,000 years ago. They continue to pray for returning to Jerusalem and Zion, and most of them did not do it for this. And therefore, over time, it's just was waning. It was diminishing. And we see today what is happening. The same UN that helped us to establish the state of Israel today is very much against us. I think that I heard once by the name of Rabbi Soloveitchik from Boston and YU. He said, God created the UN only for one decision, to establish Medinat Israel. After that, you can close the UN because they actually serve no purpose in the world. And do you know anything that they change the world? This was a change of the world, letting the Jews have their own country. So I think about it, maybe for these countries, for many of them, was like the being reluctant to continue a situation that they didn't want to find themselves in, like Yaakov doesn't want actually to marry Leah. But for all kinds of purposes, they stuck together, right? So they stuck with Medinat Israel, and since then they just try to get rid of it until this very day. But more important, our life is a journey. The life of the Jewish people is a journey. And when Yaakov left Israel, he knew that he comes back. And this is the purpose of the dream and the ladder and the angels coming up and down, because this journey just started. He will be back, and he made all the vows to ensure that. And indeed, in the end of our Parsha, he returns back to the land of Israel. Isn't it exactly what the Jews went through, and in oppressing regimes, cheated, their money was taken, every opportunity to strip the Jewish community from their money, as Laban did. For the Jews, it was in England, it was in Spain, it was in Germany, it was everywhere. Eventually, they left the money, they were deceived, they were utilized, exploited. Everything that, is described in our Parsha is what the Jewish people went through in Jewish history. And the success of Jacob, despite it, to build a family, to accumulate wealth, to invent, because if you read the end of the Parsha, how he actually became a breeder, a very successful one, exceeding the sheep and the wealth of the person that he worked for, you have to say, wow, this is a story of the Jewish people. It's about invention, about suffering, about resilience, about being the best you can, no matter what the circumstances around you. You never portray yourself as a victim. And if Yaakov spoke to Leah and Rachel and tell them how awful his relationship with their father, it was not to say, oh, and now I deserve this and this and this, He said it's about time to take full responsibility to our family life and to move from this place and to rebuild in Eretz Israel, which he did. I was
thinking that when Yaakov told Rachel and Leah really how awful their father was and conniving, I was wondering about their feelings and what they, is it okay to tell somebody how awful their father is?
I think that we have to learn something very, very important from this parsha. Listen, Laban is blaming Yaakov when he meet him. למה לקחת את בנותיי כשבויות חרב? Like you took them like captives. That's the way he used to think about things like this. A person is running away, so he apparently going to treat the daughters of Laban in an awful way, because apparently that's what he would do. And just think about what happened in Gaza, how they treated the captive there. So Laban in his mind think, well, if Yaakov take them this way, that's what he's going to do to them later. But think about Yaakov, like he does not want to force them to decide upon this. He want to consult with them. He show them. I think this is a true love when a person who is like already like sick and tired cannot take it anymore. He make his decision in condition that his wife is going to agree with it, and he apparently wanted them to know how terrible he feels about the whole situation. And I'm sure to his, I don't think it was surprise to him, but he was comforted by the fact that they felt exactly the same. They told him, you have to do it because our father treat us so poorly and so badly that we completely agree with you. We never wanted to raise this opportunity, but once you talk about it, it's about time to
Do
leave.
children know when their parents are unethical?
Oh, they know. Of course, they know. They know very well. Sometimes they don't know at the time, but abusive parents is unfortunately something that uh, I wouldn't say common, but you hear about stories. You hear about stories of abusing parents. It's very
That
sad.
must be rough for you as an administrator in a school with so many students. Sometimes I'm sure you're faced with difficult narratives.
Sometimes, let me tell you something. This morning, I was facing something like this. Well, today, I just want to be honest. Sometimes, students think that if the parents say that you cannot go to this party because the parent had valid concern, oh, the parent is abusive. So abuse might be interpreted in different ways, but unfortunately, there are bad stories. And I'm just like administrator here, but we have a social worker, and sometimes we get this kind of story, which are very, very sad.
Rabbi, I want to conclude Torah in real time this week with a poem written by AI. And the poem goes Azoy, as my grandfather used to say.
Oh, yeah.
Azoy.
Okay.
This week we learned Vayetze. In it, Jacob runs into the night, leaving Beersheba, leaving the warmth of home and the brother he wounded. He carries fear in his ribs and exile in his breath. The world grows wide and dark around him. But in that barren place, a stone for a pillow, a wilderness for a blanket, heaven suddenly opens. A ladder rises rooted in earth, disappearing into skylight. Angels climb and descend like prayers, learning how to walk. And Jacob learns that destiny can call you even when you feel most lost. Vayetze is a portion of journeys outward toward Haran, toward Rachel's kindness, Leah's tears, a complicated love that births a nation. And it's inward, toward responsibility, toward patience, towards the courage to stay even when the heart aches to flee. We watch him work for years, sweating devotion into the fields, enduring Laban's tricks, raising a family from loneliness and hope. Slowly, quietly, the frightened youth becomes a man whose purpose beats steady beneath his ribs. The God who met him in the dream walks beside him in silence, a presence felt more than seen. At its heart, Vayetze is a Parsha of transformation, of discovering that holiness erupts in the most unexpected corners, on a road at dusk, beside a well, inside a weary heart that still dares to trust tomorrow. It reminds us that our own journeys matter, that the steps we never wanted to take shape us most deeply, that we are accompanied even when our paths feel empty, that growth often rises from the very places we once feared were barren, and that sometimes all it takes is one dream in the darkness to change the road ahead.
I like the poems recently. They are more sophisticated and
Right? I agree.
yeah, they are getting better and better.
Rabbi, I
Nice.
want to thank you very much for this shiur, and I also want to wish you a Nasiya Tova, because I know for the American Thanksgiving you're going off to D.C. to see your son, correct?
To see my son and my daughter-in-law and my three wonderful grandchildren. This is going to be lots of fun, and we are looking forward to
Is
it.
that a Vayetze Yaakov for you at all?
In a way, it's always like, what can I tell you? It's like, to be on to make sure that you pack everything and you arrive to the place safely and you don't miss your flight. And today it's so easy with security and checking and passports and everything. So, in a way, but I don't run away from my life like Yaakov, so it's okay. And my brother is very nice to me too.
Good to hear. I'm happy to hear it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening and for watching. We were delighted to be here to learn the Parsha with you. And we suggest very strongly that you go deeper. Try to find midrashim or rabbis who speak about the various aspects of these Parsha, which are so rich and so full of ideas and thoughts. Learn as much as you can. The more you learn, the deeper you go. So thank you so much. And we look forward to being with you again next week. To our American friends, happy Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.